All right, before we get too deep into this, let's review where we were at yesterday. What were our demand determinants so far?
Changes the number of buyers in the market.
Whoa. What's happening? How come you calibrate it?
I know I need to
What
calibrate
is
it. I did calibrate it earlier.
Is there a solution for smartphones?
Huh?
Is that why you don't have a smartphone?
Yep.
Wait, what? Holy crap, there's a smartphone. What is that?
Thank you, Mitchell.
It's so
Good morning.
no.
Thank you. Have a good day.
But it's just. Oh, it's not. Miss Hoke, how does that work? Like, what do you have?
Little dangly thing hanging off the
Is that cheapest?
bottom of the projector. It's
Is
a
that
little
cheaper?
camera that captures the end of the magic wand.
Cool. So is that a more cost efficient smartphone?
It's $119.
How much is the smartphone?
The first one I bought was $5,500. There we go. All right, next. Change in consumer income. And another one?
Change in price of
Change in what?
price of related goods.
Not changing price of goods. And which do I have to specify? I have to specify whether it is a substitute or a related to the change in consumer income. I have to know whether the good is
Inferior.
normal or inferior. All right. All right, so our next one is change in consumer tastes and preferences. If consumers all of a sudden decide they like a good, then that will increase demand for the good. If demand for a good increases, which direction does a demand curve shift? Point. That was a good point. Yes, to the right. So let's say that name a influential celebrity.
Yeah, Ariana Grande.
Okay. Ariana Grande suddenly starts running ads for Vidal Sassoon shampoo. What happens to demand for Vidal Sassoon shampoo?
Increase.
What does Lincoln Mercury hope has happened to demand for their car since Matthew McConaughey began advertising for them? Increased. Now, what happens? This one is actually very relevant right now. Right? Some consumers have been very influenced by Colin Kaepernick signing on with Nike, and demand has increased amongst those consumers, but amongst other consumers, demand has, as evidenced by the sneaker bonfires going on, right? It's worse than when people burned disco records. All right, the Atkins diet was a huge diet fad in the 90s. All the meat and all the fat you want, just no carbs. Lots and lots of protein in the form of the eggs, and demand for eggs went up. And then the FDA, not the FDA, the AMA, the American Medical Association, came out and said, eating too many eggs will raise your cholesterol, cause an instantaneous heart attack, and you could die. And we saw the demand curve for eggs do what? Swoosh, back to the left. So, change in consumer tastes and preferences. Another thing that can cause consumer tastes and preferences to change is the weather. Do you suppose that consumer demand for hotels in the inland southeast United States has changed recently?
Yes.
Why?
Because nobody wants to get
Consumers prefer not to be dead. Yes, remarkable. How about demand for plywood? Increased because consumers prefer
their house.
to have their house windows not blown in. Yeah. Let's see, it's September now. In 3 months, what do you suppose consumer demand for bikinis will be in the state of Nebraska? Pretty low. Why?
Because it's cold.
Because consumers prefer down coats when it's 20 below and 3 feet deep with snow. We're supposed to have a very snowy winter this winter. Yes, all the seniors who won't have to make up the snow days celebrate. Alright. So changes in weather affect that as well. The consumer tastes and preferences one is actually just written as, come on. Change in consumer tastes and preferences. And we don't just make it change in consumer tastes. I need it to be change in consumer tastes and preferences. Because consumers prefer not to be dead. You don't say consumers taste not to be dead. Just helps you think about it in the right way. Okay? Good? Should go back to blue. Okay, so this one, changing consumer expectations. And you need to think about this one as changing consumer price expectations. Changing consumer price expectations. We'll go ahead and write that up. Changing consumer price expectations. Right now, what are you starting to see out on the floor, on the sales floor at Lowe's and Home Depot that wasn't there a month ago?
Rakes.
What? Rakes were there, still there. Think further ahead, be retail. Snow blowers. They've stinking got snow blowers out on the floor at both of those stores right now. Snow is the furthest thing from your mind, right? But if they need to have floor space for snow blowers, what are they discounting right now? Lawn mowers occupy the same space. So consumer price expectations alter demand around this stuff. If you had a lawnmower that was on its last legs all summer long, and you know that at the end of the season, those get discounted to get rid of them so that they've got room to put the snow blowers. Do you keep nursing that lawnmower along as you can? Yeah. So consumer demand for those things actually decreases when they expect the price to go down in the future. Doesn't that make good sense? If you knew that your family was going to Mexico over Christmas break, and you didn't like the swimsuit you had this summer, and you wanted to have one to go to Mexico, when might you buy it to be value-conscious consumer.
In the winter.
Not in the winter, because there's going to be very few of them around, and they won't be discounted then because they're aimed at those cruise consumers. And this,
End of summer.
you buy it at the end of
Like now.
the summer. You go shopping for that bikini right now when they're like 40% off. Right? Or if you think you can maintain your size, go buy one for next year. Now, throw it in a drawer. My mother, every year in the spring, we would go coat shopping. I hated it. We'd go coat shopping, and she would buy me a coat that came clear down to here. This doesn't fit, Mom. I can't even get my hands out of it to zip it. Sure enough, come cold weather the next year, I had a coat that fit me fine. And she had paid like $20 for it. Smart lady. All right. The other thing is, if you expect your income to go up or expect it to go down, okay? If, Sheehan, you're a family of 5, your wife and your 3 kids, or your partner and your 3 kids, I don't judge. You and your spouse, 3 kids, and you've just bought a new house. Car is on its last legs, you're thinking about buying a new car. And your spouse comes home and says, they're talking about layoffs at work. Do you go and buy that new car? No. Why not? Because if your spouse gets laid off, you're not going to have the money. You expect that there might be a change. And so you're going to maybe repair that car instead or buy a used car instead. Okay? So it could be consumer price expectations or consumer income expectations. It's about what consumers expect will change. If people are expecting inflation to go up a lot, they may stock up on some stuff now. It can also be about consumer weather expectations. It's consumers foreseeing the future. Okay? If folks on the Gulf Coast are watching the tropical depression that's just off the Yucatan Peninsula right now, and forecasters are saying it's going to get big, what might they go do now? Stock up on batteries and buy a generator and some bottled water and stuff, right? Because we saw the news stories, people have cleared out the grocery stores in advance of Florence, right? You can't necessarily stock up on milk or bread a week in advance, but there are lots of non-perishables that you can stock up on. You have a whole closet full of Spam. Okay, maybe canned tuna? No, still not good? All right. Okay. So, whoops. Shoot, got 2 ahead of myself. So there's the basic line. Here's the important thing on this slide. A change in price causes a movement along the curve. A change in any of those other demand determinants causes a shift of the curve. Okay? That is a huge difference. It's a huge difference. And I will explain that difference to you in a little bit. Okay? But know that a change in price does not change demand, because demand is the curve. A change in price changes quantity demanded. Say with me, demand is the curve. Demand is the curve. Demand is the whole curve. All right. Yes, still.
So, could you, like, maybe say you have a lot of influence or something, could you change any one of those factors to your benefit?
Not in a perfectly competitive market because there's so many buyers and sellers that no one entering or leaving the market has an impact on it.
What if you had, like, stock in a company or something, and you said, hey, everybody, this company's gonna fail?
You mean if you were Elon Musk and you went on a podcast and smoked weed on the podcast, could that have an impact upon the stock in your company? Most definitely.
And also, he went on Twitter and said, I'm taking the company private once we hit so much, and then that caused a skyrocket in this company.
Yeah. You absolutely can do that kind of stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if the SEC maybe starts investigating that because that could be considered stock manipulation. And could it be foreseen that erratic behavior on the part of the CEO might cause the stock value to drop? Potentially, yeah. And if the stock value is dropping, it makes it cheaper for someone to buy the stock up to help take the company private. So I would guess that there's probably some folks in the SEC who are looking at that.
What about, say, like you're a weatherman, and you said the storm was going to be way worse than it actually was because you want to help out some businesses?
They would really have to show a connection between you and those businesses, and that you were getting some kind of financial remuneration or some other sort of benefit. You know, if every year you get to take a private yacht after a big hurricane hits or something, but that would be a lot harder to prove and a lot more difficult to profit from on the part of the weatherman.
And then, like, the Wolf of Wall Street, what he used to do is, like,
So heinously illegal, everything. Have you read the book or just seen the movie?
both.
Little difference there, huh? Yeah, I mean, there was just, what in particular are you asking about him?
We can keep
Like-
background information because I haven't stayed nothing else.
Go ahead.
Well,
Oh,
I think what he did was, like, now I'm not going to be able to think of it on the spot. He would buy, he had, like, thousands of stockbrokers in one building, in one place, and he would have each of these stock people go sell a stock to a bunch of people and make them invest in these companies, and then
Drive the price up a little bit.
yeah, and then all of a sudden you would have all those people sell them at the same time at a huge profit, and then the stock would plummet, and all those people would lose their money, but he made a profit.
And he would make the profit by selling that stock short. And that's a finance transaction where you're betting on a stock going down. So to sell a stock short, what you do is you basically are selling a stock you don't own. Okay? So I sell it short, I basically hold an IOU. I borrow Jared's stock, he owns that stock. I borrow Jared's stock, write him an IOU, and say I'll pay you back for this stock. Okay? And I go and I take those shares that I got from him and I sell them. And if I sell enough of them, or I get the market to sell enough of them, or I have information that a company's going to put out a bad earnings report or things are going sideways for them, and the stock drops, I have to put that stock back in Jared's account. But if I borrowed it from him and sold it at $100 a share, and the company is going kablooey, and I am able to buy it back at $5 a share and go, here you go, I've just made $95 a share, minus my transaction fees. Hugely, the way in which he manipulated the market, hugely illegal. Selling short is not illegal. It is a tremendous gamble. Because here's the way selling short goes wrong. There is a maximum upside to selling short. If you sell short at $100 a share, the maximum amount of money you can make is $100 a share. Right? Because if the company goes bankrupt, I don't have to give Jared back his stock because it's not worth anything anyway. What if I sell short at $50 a share and the stock goes to $150 a share? I've lost $100 a share. Or if, let's make a small bet. It's a company that's been dying for a while. I'm going to buy 1,000 shares, or I'm going to sell short 1,000 shares at $5 a share. So I'm going to make $5,000, right? That's a pretty good profit, right? Except the company hires a new CEO who just turns things around. I've gone on vacation with my kids to Disney World for a week, not paying any attention, and by the time I come back, that stock's up to $50 a share. I've just lost $45,000. Your loss potential is unlimited when you sell short.
What I thought was interesting was one thing he got in trouble for was how he sold the stock to people, like he was being really persuasive, something that was considered unethical business practices. And that's how he got these people to buy up all the penny stocks.
Well, being really persuasive is one thing, because you can be a good salesman. That's not illegal. It's how you get them to buy it. Do you give them false information? Do you deliberately mislead them? Do you make promises that you aren't responsible for keeping? I guarantee you that this stock is going to hit $2 a share by next March. That's an illegal thing to say as a stockbroker. You cannot do that. And I am no longer licensed, but yeah, you can go to jail for life for breaking some of those laws.
So that would be like changing the expectations where that would be illegal.
What's like insider trading?
Insider trading is you either work for the company and know things and act on them, or you tell somebody who acts on them and they got information from an insider. So when you work for a company, there'll be a blackout window. So when I worked for TD Ameritrade, in advance of any earnings statement or any public release of information from the company, there would always be about a 2-month blackout window ahead of that and a 1-month blackout window after, where any stock that you held in the company was locked in your account. You couldn't do anything with it. Your immediate family members, their stock in the company was also locked in their accounts. So, fine, my account at TD Ameritrade, that's locked, but I've got an account with somebody else, at E-Trade. Heaven forbid they find out that you've done that, by the way. You've got an account at E-Trade and you sell the stock and make a huge profit because you know that the earnings have been down. You've been watching the layouts and the pink slips go out and people walk out the door. The SEC can investigate that and throw you in jail. Take all your profits.
Why is that? I don't understand why that's illegal.
Because you have privileged information that the public also trading in that stock does not have.
Right. So
That's an unfair advantage.
But the market wouldn't have changed if no one else knew that their things were going down. Right?
No, but I sold the stock before the public knew about the layoffs or the declining profits. So I sold while the stock was still high. Then the information is made public and the public reacts, the stock goes down. I sold at a higher price than the market should have allowed. I shouldn't have been able to do it until the information was public. Yeah. But that's all finance stuff. And we'll spend some time talking about my time at Ameritrade a little later. All right, demand curve for music downloads. Please, let's all get in our time machine and go back to a time when iPods were new and influential in the market. Okay? What happens to demand for music downloads? So the music downloads is what we're graphing. We're going to do it if the price of iPods falls, the price of music downloads falls, and the price of CDs fall. So if the price of iPods falls, who wants to come play with the magic wand and graph this? price of iPods falls, we're graphing music downloads. I'll spot you your price and your quantity. I'll even spot you your first curve. The price of music, or the price of iPods has fallen. Demand for music downloads. You got to talk loud enough so the computer can pick it up to get your answer to Joe.
Okay. So basically the downloads will fall because of iPods, because iPods get downloads, not CDs. So basically the curve will shift to the left.
Okay, so Arbor said, we don't have to do arrows.
Yeah.
So Arbor said, demand for music downloads goes down when iPods get cheaper. Is that what you meant to say, Arbor?
Not really.
The price of iPods falls, we're graphing music downloads.
Oh, I got it in a different way. I thought the price of the sales of iPod will drop. Like they will not be selling a lot of iPods.
No, we're graphing music downloads.
No, my bad.
Grace?
To press the grade
No, don't press the record. Don't put your hand in front of it. Camera has to be able to see where the, yep.
So if the price goes down of iPods, the music downloads are gonna go up because it's cheaper. So it's gonna shift to the right.
So, what is the demand determinant?
Change in the price of related goods.
Change in price of related goods complements. Because music downloads complement iPods. iPods complement music downloads, really. Okay? So if you were writing an answer to this, and you will have to do both, write an answer and graph it, you would say, this is the formula. As a result of a change in the price of a related good, complements demand for music downloads decreases as the price of iPods decreases. And I meant to say increases on this one. And we'll go over that formula on Monday. Have a great weekend. Whose week is it for current events?
H through Z.
H through Z, last half of the alphabet. And whose week is it for extra credit? All right. Have a great weekend, y'all.
No, you're gonna.
Keep reading ahead. If you haven't read through supply, get that done by Monday.
I don't think you were.